Okay, and finally we get to the postmodern era. Okay, now because the postmodern era is cool and hip and emo and stuff, it likes to be anti-establishment. So in this era, we're not as focused on the big questions as all the other people were. All right? Instead, what we are doing is we are going back and we are looking at the legal systems that have been created from what has come before. And we're saying, okay, well, what does this tell us about society? What can we learn about each other from our legal systems? Okay? And we look at two groups of people who do this. The first is critical legal studies. And the second one is feminists. Okay. Now CLS are, or were rather, some of them still around, a group of guys at Harvard. Okay? And what they did is they deconstructed the law. And they referred to their form of deconstruction as trashing. Okay? So they looked at the law and they took it apart and they found three characteristics, right? They said that first, the law creates a false consciousness. I'm going into the feminist. Okay? And then that the law is indeterminate. And finally, that the law is politics. Okay. What is false consciousness? What they're saying is that because there is law, and because we have always done things this way, that we've come to believe that we should continue to do things this way. Okay, so I'm going to give you an example. What is the age of majority in South Africa? 18, right? Why is it 18? What happens? I can't hear anybody. Why is it 18? Okay, but why is that the law? Why is the law 18? Say what? Okay, when you finish high school, so you have some kind of education. Does everybody who is 18 finish high school? No, right? What else? Okay, that you have a certain level of maturity at the age of 18. Suddenly at 18, you're allowed to drink, you're allowed to drive, you're allowed to get married, you're allowed to vote. Okay? Does everybody have the responsibility to deal with all of those things at 18? No, right? Some people get it much younger. Some people never get it. Okay? Some people should never be allowed to vote or drive for that matter, especially people who tend to drive VW Polos. Okay? So you can see that having that law creates the conception that actually at 18 you're suddenly miraculously able to deal with all those responsibilities. Or that everybody under that age doesn't have the ability to deal with those responsibilities. Okay? It creates a sense of false consciousness. Okay? And you imagine if you are 18 and you're drinking and driving, is there a difference to somebody being 18 and drinking and driving and somebody being 64 and drinking and driving? There is when you're 18, right? Okay? I know I shouldn't have been given my driving license until I was about 24. Okay, the law is indeterminate. Sometimes the law says one thing, and somewhere else it says the opposite thing. Okay? And what is the law on prostitution in South Africa? It's illegal, right? You're not allowed to be a prostitute in South Africa. Yet the Constitution says that everybody has the right to practice their trade and profession. You have that right provided you're not a prostitute. Okay? So the law is contradictory. It says one thing on the one hand, and it says the other on the other side. Okay? And finally, we say that the law is politics. Or CLS says that the law is politics. Okay? They say that behind a lot of the legislation that we have and a lot of the way the judges make decisions are political choices. Okay? When did the age of majority in South Africa come down? Okay, it came down before the elections. Okay? So that more people would vote a new political party into power. Well, perhaps that's why. Okay? CLS would interpret it to say that the law is politics. Okay? The secrecy bill, or act, I can't ever tell where it is, right? Do we need that, or is it a political piece of legislation? Okay? It's possible that it is a political piece of legislation, or it's possible that we really, really need it. CLS would interpret to say it is political. I think here is another one. Okay? I do not have an opinion either way, and for the sake of UNISA, let's just repeat that. I do not have an opinion either way. Okay, neither does UNISA. Jacob Zuma was taken to court for corruption, right? It's called the Nicholson judgment. What happened? He wasn't freed, okay? It was thrown out. Judge Nicholson said the case was bad in law, that there was no reason for the case to continue. Thrown out. Okay? Some people think that Judge Nicholson was right, that the case was bad in law, okay? That Jacob Zuma, that there were no corruption issues. But some people, and particularly people who like CLS, tend to think that that case was decided because of politics. Jacob Zuma was the president of the ANC. He was going to be the next president of the country. If Judge Nicholson had taken him through, right, if he had charged him, would Judge Nicholson have a career after he became president? Okay? Possibly, and as I said, I don't have an opinion, but the law is politics. Okay, are we all clear on that one? Okay. Right. Okay, and then finally, we discuss feminists. Okay? And what the feminists are trying to do is they're trying to show how the law is a male construct and how the law prefers men. Okay? Now the study guide takes quite a while to get there. Okay? There are a couple of important things that we need to identify. Okay? There is a difference between sameness feminism and difference feminism. Okay? What's the difference? Sameness feminism say men and women are the same, therefore they should have the same rights. Okay? Difference feminism says men and women are different, and therefore they need their own rights. Okay? But we should still have rights. Okay? Just different rights. Okay? And then we know that there is a difference between sex and gender. Okay? Sex is biological. Men are biologically different from women. Gender says that men and women have different characteristics. They are stereotyped in different ways. Okay? So let's talk about Caster Semenya. What happened to Caster Semenya? She had to go for gender testing. right? They got it wrong. She didn't have to go for gender testing, she had to go for sex testing. Okay? They didn't want to test how well she ironed. Right? They wanted to test whether genetically she fell into our genetic conception of a female. Okay? She went for sex testing. Well, whether she did or not, we don't actually know. All right? But why did she have to go for that? Because she didn't conform to the gender stereotypes that we have of women. Right? She didn't look nice, like nice long blonde hair. She didn't have small, skinny waist, right? She's strong. And that doesn't conform to our stereotypical idea of what a woman should be. So they called her out and they sent her for sex testing, right? Was it fair? No, it was disgusting. Yeah, yeah. Right? Okay, so as I said, with the feminists, once we've learned all these things, what we're trying to do is we're trying to show that the law is a male construct and that it prefers men, right? And the best example of this was by a woman called Mary Jo Frugg. She was a professor at Harvard, and she published, well, she didn't publish an article because unfortunately she was killed just before the publication, so they published it in her honor. And she published an article about the rape laws in America. And she pointed out that the rape laws tend to maternalize terrorize and sexualize women. How do laws maternalize women? Let's think about Hugo. What happens in Hugo? Okay, what happens in Hugo?
In Hugo, the president.
Okay, right.
Yeah.
So Nelson Mandela is being inaugurated. As part of the celebrations, he decides to release female prisoners who are in for non-violent crimes who have children under the age of 12. Hugo comes along. Hugo is a male. He is in prison for a non-violent crime. And he has a child that is under the age of 12. Why can't he be released? Well, what does the court say? The court says, no, women are carers. They take care of children. They need to be at home with the children, right? The law is maternalizing women. Okay? What else is it saying? Okay, it's saying that all the women who are in jail for non-violent crimes but who don't have children have to stay in, right? So if you don't have a child, if you aren't a mother, you're worth nothing, all right? So the law maternalizes women. How does the law terrorize women? Okay, well, if you have been raped and you take your rapist to court, you have to sit there in the court. You have to describe what has happened to you, okay? Probably quite often with the guy who has raped you there, right? And he is presumed, or her, to be innocent, right? So it terrorizes women, okay? And now obviously, I mean, Hugo again is a good example. The law sexualizes women. You're only good for something if someone can have sex with you, right? In order to be released from prison, you had to have had sex, right? Okay, so that's what the feminists do, and that's what we're looking out for. All right. Now, let's just sort of sum up. How am I doing? Okay, so we have discussed the pre-modern, the early modern, the late modern, and the postmodern. Okay? And here we discussed Plato, Aquinas, Aristotle, and African legal philosophy. Okay? Here we discussed Hobbes, Locke, positivism, and the realists. Here we discussed Dworkin, Rawls, and here we discussed CLS and feminists. Okay. Now, Professor Slavit, who also lectures this module, but unfortunately cannot be here today because she is attending the South African Medico-Legal Conference, would always ask a student, where does South Africa fall onto this? What is the law? If you go to court, what's going to happen? Say what? Well, we don't. Generally, we don't. Well, commonly, what happens in our courts? Dworkin is only applied in constitutional, not in the majority of our cases.
We have laws that are written.
Right. Okay? We practice positivism. We practice the law as it is. Okay? What is the Constitution? It's debatable, but it's written down. It's the law that we follow. It is positivist law. Okay? What is the criminal law? It's positivist law. What is the law of contract? Positivist law. Okay? But occasionally, what else do we touch on? Occasionally, the law gets realist, right? Prince didn't succeed, but we try to make the argument for it. Grootboom, realist decision. TAC, Treatment Action Campaign, realist decision. Okay? And occasionally we see a bit of Dworkin, occasionally, okay? Do we see this? Yes, occasionally we do. African legal philosophy, we said, we see it, right? And occasionally we do see people making arguments based on natural law beliefs. Christian education, they didn't succeed, but they're still using them, okay? And occasionally, amongst our academics and amongst constitutional court cases, we see a little bit of critical legal studies, okay? Everybody happy? Okay, so are we ready to talk about the exam? Okay. Right. Okay, now, just for the sake of the video, we are discussing this for the 2014 Semester 1 exam, okay? The exam, if you're watching this video at any other semester, double check your tutorial letter, okay? Your exam will consist of 4 questions for 80 marks. And under no circumstances am I telling you what those questions are. Unlucky, right? What I can tell you is that the questions will come out of some of the material in your study guide. Surprise, right? Okay, off the top of my head, there are going to be 30-mark questions, 20-mark questions, and perhaps 10-mark questions. There will be one 30-mark question, okay? For 30 marks, you need to be writing at least 3 pages. For 20 marks, you need to be writing at least 2 pages. Right. Right, the first thing you do before you go into your exam hall is you work out your time. Okay? Who does work out their time? Okay, you need to be working out your time, right? You have 2 hours for 80 marks. I think that works out to, like, anybody who's good at maths, I don't know. It gives you a couple of minutes per mark, right? If it is a 30-mark question, you have about 45 minutes to answer that question, okay? If you go over 45 minutes, stop writing, leave a page open, and move on to the next question. Here's why. The average student, and I'm talking about the average student, hopefully you are all above average students, but the average student is going to get about 60% in each question, right? If you get 60% for the first question, the second question, and the third question, but you don't answer the fourth question, have you done enough to pass? Possibly not, right? You want to make sure that you are answering all the questions, okay? It is better to provide answers for all the questions than only providing answers for 3, right? So watch your time, stick to it. I don't care whether you start with question 3, then do question 2, then do question 4, and then do question 1. Answer the question that you know best first. It's going to make you feel more confident about the exam, and it's going to give you time to remember stuff for the questions that you're a bit worried about. Okay? So, time and, answer the questions in whatever order you want. Okay? The second tip, and students don't do this. This is how I did my philosophy exam, and I obviously did kind of well in my philosophy exam, right? Plan your essays before you start writing. Okay? I used to use a mind map. So I would draw my mind map in my answer book so that I would know how to draft a logical, comprehensive essay. Right? I wouldn't just start writing everything I know. Right? Now I use mind maps. Mind map work for me. If you want to use point form for planning, that's fine. Right? Do not use point form in your answers, though. You are not supposed to write with bullets. You have to construct an actual essay. Is everybody clear about that? Okay? So plan your essays beforehand. Okay? I don't care whether you do it at the back of the book. I don't care whether you do it before your answer. Plan your essay. Okay? Take 3, 5 minutes. It's going to help you construct a better answer. Right. Okay? Because let's think. We're writing an answer which is Dworkin. Okay? So we're going to write about Dworkin. There needs to be some kind of introduction. Okay, we're going to write about law as pragmatism. Okay, we're going to write about constructive interpretation. We're going to write about then the process, right? And we know that we've got all that process to go through. And then we're going to write about South African application. And we know that it's been applied in this case, in this case, in this case, right? Okay, so you can see that in my head, in a couple of minutes, I've done an answer to Dworkin, okay? Oh my word, I've forgotten law as conventionalism, right? So you know now I've suddenly remembered, I know that it has to fit in either here or here, and it's not going to disturb the flow of my essay. Because if you're writing your essay and then suddenly at the end you write about law as conventionalism, your marker is going to think this person is really confused, doesn't understand anything, okay? So constructing a logical answer essay is very important in this subject. Planning. Yes, there's a question?
I think when I was looking at the second assignment, you were very particular about writing in point form. I can't remember the exact wording, but something got my stomach rumbling because when I looked at that, the first assignment,
Okay. Okay. I will discuss the assignment just now when we switch off the camera. The important thing to learn about this is do not write with bullets and numbering, do not write in point form in your exam, unless it is for the plan, okay? Right, the other great thing about planning is that let's just say you happen to run out of time. You shouldn't have run out of time. We've constructed it so that you can write 80 marks in 2 hours, right? We're not these evil witches who are like, ha ha ha, we're going to make you fail, right? Okay? But let's just say you've written really, really slow, or you couldn't think and you had to take 10 minutes to, you know, try and remember or something, right? If you have planned, and we are talking about the difference between 48% and 50%, or 45% and 48% so that you get the push through, right? Or we are talking about the difference between 73 and 75. If you have done that plan, and your marker goes back and goes, okay, they obviously ran out of time, but they did know what they were talking about, your marker will find you those 2 marks that you need. All right? But only if you've done your plan. If you run out of time and there's nothing we can go back to, right, unlucky. Okay, so then the next thing to do is to read the question. Okay? Students, do not do this. Students see Dworkin and they're like, okay, I'm going to write everything that I feel about Dworkin. Everything. Right? But if we have only asked for Dworkin's constructive interpretation, the only marks that you're getting are for Dworkin's constructive interpretation. We're not giving you for law as pragmatism and formalism. You may very briefly include them in an introduction paragraph in 1 sentence, but your marks are coming here, right? You have to learn to read the question to know what we are asking. Okay? A couple of years ago, we asked the question, what would non-essentialist feminists think of Plato's ideal state? And we got essentialist feminism and difference feminism, non-essentialist feminism, and then Plato, blah, 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 right? You were not getting marks for essentialist feminism and difference feminism and sameness feminism. You were getting marks for non-essentialist feminism. So you don't want to waste your time. All right? So read the question and answer the question asked. Right? Okay, then there are some steps. The first thing that you should do is you should provide us with theory, straight out of the study guide theory, right? At least 50% of your marks are going to come from straight out of the study guide theory. Okay? Right? Then, it depends on what the question asks. Some questions are going to ask for application. Okay? So I'm trying to think, in past papers we've done things like we have given you, I'm trying to remember, like we did the whole spear case with the president where the guy threw paint against the painting, right? And so what you had to do is you had to put down the theory, and then you had to apply the theory to what we asked, right? A large percentage of your marks are going to come from the application. If you don't do the application, you're not getting a large percentage of your marks, okay? Or the question might ask for comparison. So as I said, a couple of years ago we asked give a non-essentialist feminist view of Plato's ideal state, right? So people told us, this is what non-essentialist feminists say. This is what Plato's ideal state is. Didn't do a comparison, right? Even if you repeat yourself, you have to say, non-essentialist feminists wouldn't like Plato's ideal state because Plato didn't have any place for women, right? You have to actually give us the comparison, okay? Right. Then, if we have asked for it, you will give your own opinion. But only if we asked for it. Okay? However, good students will be able to do some critical thinking and provide their own examples. Okay? So, critical thinking. Is this good? Is this bad? What is the deficiency here? Why should we be using this theory, right? Do you understand what I'm saying? Okay? Own examples. A couple of years ago, we asked a question about social contracts. And one of the students wrote in their exam, it was brilliant. He said, I live in a estate. We have a governing body. The governing body decides what the rules are in the estate, like that the speed limit should only be 40 kilometers an hour. He said, this is an example of a social contract. He was right. Because he used his own example, I knew that he understood the theory. He got good marks. Okay? Are you with me? Right? Sometimes, providing your own examples, provided that they are well explained. Sometimes I get a student who's like, I've got this idea and this idea, and I actually don't know what he's talking about. Okay? Provided that they are well explained, going to get you more marks. All right. That is how you answer a legal philosophy question. All right. So that's it for now, and I'm pretty sure, yes, I've done everything there. Okay, so we can stop the video. Thanks.